In 1983, 38 IRA inmates broke out of the Maze prison, 10 miles from Belfast. It was the most audacious escape since Colditz. This is the story told by 3 of the leaders of the escape, and for the first time, a prison officer. The Maze was reputedly Europe's most secure jail, a prison within an army camp.
It's hard to explain the quite intimidating nature that was the H blocks. Sentries and sensors and alarms and cameras, and even the fact that the jail is situated more or less inside a British Army military camp.
Each wing is secure. Each leg of the H in the block is a secure unit. The block's a secure unit. Then that is also in a phase, which is also inside the prison camp, which is also inside a British Army camp. If you want to get out of that, or you have a series of things to do to go from point A to point B, and it's all designed as a hyper-secure unit.
There was this aura developing of, this was an impregnable fortress, the only way you get out of, jail. And in fact, of course, the British government and Maggie Thatcher were boasting about it. It was in a wooden box.
It was virtually impossible for any individual criminal to escape. But its designers hadn't accounted for a prison population who considered themselves an army.
The amount of prisoners who were doing huge sentences was phenomenal. So there were loads of life sentence prisoners, 20 to 30-year sentence prisoners. So in a sense, people had to focus on attempting to get out.
One of the duties of political prisoners is the escape. It was like shooting for the stars. It's like something that you've always really wanted, And what I wanted to do was to not be released, but to escape. It's great to be released, but I wanted to break the system.
You just can't willy-nilly get up and start cutting holes in fences. Otherwise, the security apparatus is on top of you morning, noon and night. The camp staff decided that something needs to be done to coordinate this.
The camp escape officer who was appointed was Larry Marley. Immediately, he set about establishing an escape department. He wanted to create a collective ethos within the jail about an approach to escapes.
So they set about organising an escape officer in every block. They set about setting up an intelligence officer who was to bring in intelligence.
It's a very large camp. And when the screws would move you from one part of the jail to the other, they would move you in blocked out vans. They had a policy of providing you with the most limited view of the jail. Larry set about a plan to, first of all, demystify the jail. It was, first of all, getting the structure, where each block was in relation to each other block. Any aerial photographs that would have existed of the jail in the media would have been smuggled in from outside. There would have been ordnance survey maps smuggled in from outside with a view to developing an outside view of the jail. The intelligence gathering process, the most obvious aspect of it was prisoners moving about the jail. We then made ourselves available for work with the view to infiltrating the system. So prisoners were then working in the prison hospital, prison administration areas, the kitchen, going out on visits, coming back from visits. There was prisoners going out on parole, coming back from parole. Larry then had working with him a think tank, a wee core group, who would go through the information coming in from a central perspective.
He was also very innovative, and he used to encourage me when I would say about, look, I think we could do this and do it. And he said, listen, you need to think big. Let's think big. Never mind 4 or 5 people. Why not 20, 25, 34? Why not 40? Why not 50? Think big. Always think big.
Just 18 months earlier, this most closed of worlds had become very public indeed, as the IRA made it a battleground with staff and the British government.
There can be no question of political status for someone who is serving a sentence for crime. Crime is crime is crime. It is not political, it is crime.
During the hunger strike was, I would say, was probably the most tense time in the prison. I mean, I, for one, didn't think that a prisoner would die on hunger strike. I thought when I went on hunger strike, they'd come to an agreement with the government, but I could not for life of me see the government letting somebody die. And it came as a shock when the first one died, and then that threw a blanket over the Maze prison. The atmosphere in it, you could have cut it with a knife.
Screws didn't like us because the IRA on the outside had killed X amount of prison staff, and on a more face-to-face level, we didn't like Screws because by and large we had been the victims of their brutality.
There was huge anger. I would argue hatred. Some of the stuff that was done during the protest, I mean, people still talk about with great emotion.
The escape plan began with a radical move. The initial focus was not the prison or its structure. The first walls to scale were in the prison officers' minds.
Part of the change in tactics was to have a better, if that can be the term, certainly a more working relationship with the prison staff.
We sat down and we planned the approach to the Screws with regards to trying to create a friendly environment. Part of that was talking to Screws by their first names, arguing with them over calling us by our second names. I mean, if they said, story, visit, you say, money ahead, John, the name's Bobby, what are you shouting like that for? And trying to create this sort of softness and taking the tension out of the climate. It
was crucial for the psychology that existed in the bloc to be brought to the level of not this hyper-security attitude that they had had.
We went through a difficult time on occasions getting Republican comrades to go out into the same environment as Screws and act in a way as if you were accepting the status quo. For instance, Bick McFarlane, who would be the OC of the hunger strike. How all of a sudden he could be out cleaning the bins.
This is a Republican prisoner, naked in a cell, who's taken on Maggie Thatcher. And then all of a sudden they have him brushing yards. And their attitude actually, strange enough, was in some of them, was they thought they'd broke us. Others, you know, were a bit suspicious, but there was ones there who actually thought, oh, we've got these guys now.
When the Screws come down the wing, you'd actually stood helping them with a crossword. Or you'd have been bantering them about the football. It also then, when you're sitting down, you're making them tea and you're having toast, the conversations will move on to other things. Through conversation that way, you end up acquiring information as well. You know, just through a process, which is, it must be a nightmare queuing up to get out there. Nah, I know what I do, blah, blah, blah. You know, it must take us an eternity getting off duty if there's 200 going out at the one time. No, but sure, we stagger it and this is what you do. And sure, I can go out and know what I do is slip off early, and that PO lets me away 15 minutes early because, see, at such and such a time, that's when you get the big. So somebody's only after telling you that the worst time in the world to go through that gate there is at 3:45.